What if I told you that Oscar Piastri, with fewer laps, achieved more than Lando Norris in the most important tests of the year? Are we underestimating the Australian talent within a McLaren that seemed to have everything clear? From the Woking factory, the message was clear. This car had to be interpreted as an opportunity for a total reset, not as a simple continuation of the mcl39. The technical revolution of 2026, which includes a drastic reduction in downforce, the elimination of extreme ground effect, and the adoption of a hybrid platform with more simplified active aerodynamics, involved serious risks for anyone who decided to copy the past. That's why McLaren chose to anticipate. It wasn't enough to win. A concept had to be designed that could remain competitive over several evolution cycles without losing its balance. While other teams opted to accumulate laps from the first day of testing, McLaren chose not to go out on the track in Barcelona until the third day. This decision was not the product of logistical failures or setbacks, but rather a carefully designed maneuver to squeeze AVL's facilities in Austria until the last moment. There, the mcl40 was put to the test on dynamic simulation benches that replicate not only real track conditions, but also extreme scenarios of structural failure, internal combustion, and aerodynamic behavior under stress. This validation before exhibition approach was supported by Andrea Stella with a technical but very revealing speech. It was not about showing the car to the world, but about understanding it deeply before it even took a spin. That perfectionism was evident in the language the team principal used when declaring that the 2026 season represented an unprecedented level of simultaneous chassis, power unit, and tire redesign. For Stella, this was the first time in her career that the entire car, literally everything, was under review. From the suspension geometry to the thermal and kinetic energy management logic, to the flat bottom response, every part of the car had to be rethought as if it were a completely new category. Thus, McLaren's arrival at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya was not an attempt to impress with chronometers, but rather a silent test of operational maturity. Their internal calendar prioritized quality over quantity. Instead of adding empty laps, the goal was to evaluate how the car's architecture responded to real inputs under controlled conditions. The obsession with efficiency was such that they even decided not to incorporate new parts in these first days. For the technical team led by Rob Marshall, the important thing was to build a solid understanding of the base platform before launching into premature developments that could lead them down the wrong paths. In this context, each decision, from visual camouflage to the runway exit sequence, responds to a deeply strategic logic. And this extremely demanding approach will explain why, despite adding fewer laps than direct rivals such as Mercedes or Ferrari, McLaren managed to extract a quality of data well above the paddock average. The question that is beginning to gain strength in technical circles is, are we facing the birth of a new type of hegemony based not only on speed but also on development intelligence? In that equation, the mcl40 is more than a car. It is the philosophical statement of a team that has understood that dominating an era does not mean winning more races, but rather making fewer mistakes from the beginning. When Oscar Piastri first boarded the mcl40 on January 29, 2026, expectations were modest. It was, in theory, a standard filming session focused on the driver's familiarization with a car radically different from any other he had driven up to that point. But what happened on that truncated day of testing completely altered the internal narrative at McLaren. Piastri completed just 48 laps before a fuel system failure forced the team to completely dismantle the car. What would normally have been a frustrating day due to the lack of filming, turned into an unexpected revelation. Because in those few laps, the Australian not only showed speed, he delivered a level of technical feedback so clear, specific, and accurate that the Woking engineers began to rethink the comparative usefulness between pure mileage and driving quality. The time recorded by Piastri, a 1 minute and 18.419 seconds, placed him fourth in the unofficial table of the day. But the data that generated impact was another. That mark was 0.3 faster than Lando Norris' best lap the day before, even though the Briton had accumulated 77 laps and lapped without interruptions. The comparison wasn't entirely fair. Fuel loads, wind, and test programs are never equivalent, but the symbolism of the record was powerful. With less time and under pressure, Piastri had achieved superior performance in a theoretically adverse context. What surprised the technicians was not only the speed, but the clarity with which Piastri broke down the car's problems. He spoke naturally about the effects of the downforce reduction, the behavior of the rear axle under lateral transfer, the delay in the delivery of electric torque in slow corners, and how the new aerodynamic package reacted to variations in rake under braking. He was not a pilot reporting sensations. It was a simulation analyst speaking from the track in real time. Mark Temple, technical performance director, was one of the first to recognize internally that Piastri's data was being much more useful than anticipated. While other drivers need days to build confidence in a car, Piastri seemed to operate with a ready-made mental model of the mcl40's behavior. He identified oversteer patterns at the entrance to turn 4, suggested changes in front suspension height to compensate for an abrupt drop in load under braking, and requested adjustments to the differential map at high speed to stabilize passage through turns 7 and 9. This early technical understanding generated conversation beyond the McLaren garage. In technical media and specialized forums, comparisons began to emerge with historical drivers such as Jenson Button or Nico Rosberg, both known for their ability to translate data into performance with surgical precision. Piastri, with just 2 full seasons in F1, was showing a maturity typical of veterans, something that few expected at this point in his career. Friday, January 30th, the last day of the shakedown in Barcelona, became a pivotal day for McLaren. After a week marked by caution, technical problems, and a millimeter work methodology, the team decided to press the accelerator. For the first time, the mcl40 rolled uninterrupted, allowing both pilots to run complete simulation programs, data correlation, and dynamic evaluation on the track. The result was not only an increase in mileage, but a valuable example of the car's true potential, and the possible change in the internal hierarchy between its 2 drivers. Oscar Piastri was the first to take to the track. Despite the limited running accumulated in the previous days, the Australian completed a solid 80 laps in the morning session, consolidating his progress in technical understanding of the car. The most striking thing was not only the number of turns, but the fact that his best lap dropped to 1 minute and 17.446 seconds. Which placed him comfortably among the 5 best times of the week. But the most valuable thing was not measured in chronometers. What surprised McLaren engineers was how Piastri adjusted his driving style to the new limits of grip and dynamic balance that the mcl40 demanded. He knew how to find traction areas and curves where the car showed a natural tendency to slide, and he modified his braking inputs to compensate for the loss of load generated by the new technical regulations. Hours later, Lando Norris took over in the afternoon session. There, the world champion remembered why he has the number 1 on the car. He set a lap of 1 minute and 16.594 seconds, just 0.2 behind the absolute best time of the entire week, set by Lewis Hamilton with the Ferrari SF26, and made it clear that, when it comes to pure speed, he still retains a marginal advantage over his teammate. But that brilliant return, though symbolically important, was only part of the story. Because in subsequent analysis, Piastri's long stint data showed surprising consistency. With similar tires and conditions, their compound management was more uniform and their differences between fast laps and cooling laps more controlled. Even in thermal degradation, Piastri kept his times within a tighter operating range than Norris. This stability in race pace, more than the qualifying times, generated internal debates about what driving style will best adapt to the strategic demands of the new 2026 regulations, where energy control, tire temperature, and efficient recovery will be as important as pure talent behind the wheel. But what was truly disruptive was the way both pilots communicated with their engineers. While Norris maintains a more intuitive approach, focused on sensations and immediate performance, Piastri demonstrated an almost clinical ability to correlate his impressions with metrics in real time. He spoke of dead zones in the delivery of hybrid power between turns 5 and 6, and suggested changes to the ERS map to mitigate the erratic response in reactivating the heat engine. These types of suggestions are not common in drivers with less than 3 seasons in the category, and even less so when they face a completely new platform. At the end of the day, McLaren accumulated 291 laps in total throughout the week. Although that number pales in comparison to Mercedes' 500 or Ferrari's 420, within the team it was not perceived as a deficit. The internal narrative focused on the quality of the data obtained, the absence of serious structural problems, and the technical wealth that had been extracted from each outing on the track. But in the hallways of the motorhome, what was really discussed was not the mileage but Piastri's behavior. Technicians, strategists, and analysts began to quietly wonder if the Australian, still in Norris's media shadow, was not silently building his own space as the true operational brain of the team. At McLaren they know it. The admiration that his performance generated in the technical team does not necessarily translate into headlines, but it does translate into confidence. It is no longer just the driver who can score points or get on the podium when the car allows it. Now he is the driver who can guide the direction of development, who can detect an anomaly before the sensors identify it, who can propose conceptual adjustments to the balance of the car even before these are reflected in the telemetry. That, in the hyper-competitive ecosystem of Formula One, is pure gold. Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.